Hello and welcome to a new Scale 500 news video here on the channel, a video that you really do not want to miss out on. I have conducted an interview with the Herpa Wings product manager, Mr. Stephan Külgen, during the very recent Amsterdam Aviation Collectors Fair. And we started our conversation talking about the Herpa box design. Now, I have been criticizing this for years, and I know it is quite unpopular with quite many collectors as well. Herpa has in the past argued that you need these windows because otherwise collectors would not know what they are buying. They have also argued that these windows are useful because then you can see if the model is broken, something that in parts is correct, but of course we still know that you actually need to take out the model if you really want to be sure that your model is undamaged before you buy it. Now, the other thing is, of course, is that maybe it works with these kind of small boxes for narrow-body aircraft, but as these boxes get bigger and bigger, they tend to get quite unstable and start falling apart simply because there's not enough integrity to these boxes left when you cut almost all of the packaging material away. So I started my interview with the product manager of Herpa Wings, Mr. Stephan Külgen, and asked if they have even considered changing the box design.
Yeah, well, from a perspective of getting new customers, that is still valid, but that's something that you said about having the model itself being damaged, that it's not stable enough. That's something I've heard today, actually here in Schiphol a few times. That's a different aspect. That's something we would have to look into. We personally have not had that experience so far, but of course we don't ship our models individually or something, so or store them in a different way perhaps. So that is something we can look into. The design itself is something that is a different topic, because even here you can see a lot of colorful, actually pretty cool designs, but those designs are some things that we would never be able to get approved by the airline themselves, because it just doesn't fit to their corporate design, corporate identity.
But for example, let's take away the idea about having an image of a real aircraft. But for example, what would prevent you from having an image of the model itself on the front of the box, for example?
Well, that's certainly possible. I mean, that's one. I mean, picture or whatever. That's one thing. But I'm just talking about all these cool-looking. I mean, I really have to admit, cool-looking designs that you have, color elements of the livery spread out across the box. That is something that, if it were to be approved by an airline, the airline would not approve of that because it just goes against their corporate design, corporate identity. But that's something we can think about. It's something that'll have to work for all packaging. A lot of different ideas all the information that we could do on that. I heard that people would like the pictures back because it's just more emotional to have a connection between the real aircraft and the model itself. That's something, of course, where like a technical drawing would not really help. I mean, but we'll just throw around a few ideas, basically. So I'm not saying that we will change. I'm just saying that I'm just soaking up a little bit more ideas. So maybe soaking up more ideas what to put on it. We'll see.
That's totally fair enough. And just the fact that you are taking in the feedback and also considering options is great news. I just would like to make one final point on this topic, because some of the arguments you have brought about why the boxes in Scale 500 are as they are seem a bit counterintuitive when you consider that these things apparently don't apply to your Scale 200 range, because you still have images there. You don't have completely, taking away more or less all the box for these windows. So it's still possible there, but you have chosen not to do it in Scale. That's just a point I would like to make.
Right. But the 200 scale is a different size, of course. I mean, you have in the 500 scale, the amount of models, the variety we have in the 500 scale is of course much bigger than we do in 200 scale. And especially if you go down to the small boxes like the A320, 737, those are the ones actually that have, that cause the most trouble. Because
so is it a question of how much time you would need to invest in each Scale 500 box compared to the 200? So it's more a question of it goes in too much into the margins of Scale 500 compared to 200?
No, it's more that we need to look if the packaging will be approved in that way that we're doing it. It's not because we're thankful we have a huge assortment, a huge fan base of spotters. They see something in the new brochure and they come to us, and it's pretty cool actually, and we're thankful for all these suggestions. Say, I took a picture of this when it came out. Can you take my picture onto the box? it's in the end, it's the thing, what can we do in the size on the box, and what in the end will be approved by the airline. Because especially if we go back, as I was saying, with the small boxes, you have a small image. It has to be an image where the aircraft is clearly identifiable. And then, of course, we still have the airline who says, nope, I don't want that angle, I don't want this, I don't want that on it, or whatever. So it's not a real cost issue. It's more of a, with the images, it's more of a time issue, going back and forth, having to then tell the photographer, hey, the airline said we can't use your picture, we have to go for another one.
But that's money in the end as well. Time is money.
Right. But it's not, of course. I mean, but time is something. I don't work only 8 hours a day, or my colleagues. We work until the work gets done.
Okay. So point taken. Right now, Herpa seems to struggle a little bit, to be polite, with actually delivering models. We've had this year 2 Scale 500 models released, a lot Tupolev, I believe, and the American 777-300ER. 2 models delayed from 2024. We haven't seen any 2025 releases that were announced for this year coming out so far, and we still have a quite considerable backlog from 2024. What's happening right now?
Well, I can say that I'm glad that it's a good timing that I can now have some positive news.
That's good.
Because we're slowly getting back into that rhythm again. We were going to, February was really pretty low, at the lowest end actually, because there's no 500 scale, no 200 scale, just snap fits, and a lot of snap fit new production runs. But from our core product, things have been delayed quite a bit, as everybody has noticed. But finally now in March, we'll actually be seeing 2 distribution runs. One together, the standard distribution one that we have with our car and truck, because we do, just for explanation, we do 1 distribution run to our retailers per month, which goes together with all the items from the cars and trucks business as well. So that's all gets shipped out at one and the same time. But we are at the very end of the March, March, we're getting quite a big shipment, and we will be picking up on a lot of those items that have been delayed. And so we'll be doing a second distribution run only for the airplane items, mainly 500 scale, some 200 scale.
But what was the issue, and what can you do to prevent it in the future?
A lot of different issues. I mean, it starts with it started with supply chain issues.
So that's in China, the factory.
In China, yes. We had some changes there. We had some changes in the logistics. We had a lot of continuing issues with logistics. Where we also, we had some last now with Chinese New Year, of course. That's always a little bit of a bottleneck, where you cannot get any container, or you cannot get any space on a ship. These ships get bigger and bigger, but there's still less and less space for some reason. But it takes months to get a rhythm into it. We've had all these political issues that have caused just the logistic networking worldwide to get into a little bit of chaos. That has sorted out itself a little bit now, and we're slowly seeing also improvement on that, but it takes time. We now have to count in up to 3 months for a shipment from Hong Kong, from China, to Europe, 3 entire months, basically to get it into our warehouse. So that includes the trucking also, and that used to take 4 or 5 weeks. And we have different alternatives now, and so we will be going in 2 different parallel logistics methods. So we're picking up on that, and then in the future we'll have as I mentioned, a certain rhythm, where we'll be back to the normal monthly rhythm of distributing, hopefully 10, 15, 20 Herpa Wings models over the different scales.
And I'm sorry I have to ask this, but how confident are you that this now will be stable? Because to be fair, supply issues from Herpa Wings is not a new phenomenon. We have had this for many, many years. You did the right step of changing the way you announce models. In the past, you announced models up to 6 months in advance, and there were many delays. You did the right step of reducing it to 1 to 2 months, so that even if you did experience delays, they were kind of hidden from the customer, because you would then only announce what was actually you would be able to then release. But we've kind of fallen back into this trap where you announce things and then they don't seem to be arriving anyways.
Right.
So to get back to the question, how confident are you that it will now be a more stable stream of models coming?
Very, very. I'm an optimistic person, but if I say something like it's good, I'm very sure that we will get things behind us, that we have the worst times behind us. Okay. Things of the past 4 years have been very frustrating for you, for us especially, because we just see there is a demand and we need to get things back to speed. We need to get things out on the market, otherwise we can't sell anything. People look for alternatives, maybe. That can happen. We don't want you don't want to get frustrated with your hobby. Your hobby's supposed to be fun, and that's what we're here for. That's our job, to get back to that. And so I do see a lot of improvement coming. A lot of product is already finished. We just need to get it here, get it into the stores, get it onto your shelves, and that'll happen in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, I like that you say that a hobby is supposed to be fun. I agree. Now, part of making a hobby fun and sustainable is that that you can finance it. That you can say, this is reasonable for me to spend X amount of money per month or per half year or whatever. Now, we have seen some dramatic price increases, to put it bluntly, with models, not just with Herpa, to be fair, they're all collected,
it's all over.
Yes,
yeah.
But it doesn't change the fact that models have been becoming quite a lot more expensive. Now, price increases also not a new thing. We've seen that also in the past from Herpa Wings. I remember very well, for example, in 2021, after some rather significant increases, you actually went to the community and said, look, guys, we know you pay more for it now, but we want to give you something back. So we will add more details to your models. Since then, prices have skyrocketed. And I don't think anyone really likes to pay these prices, but the issue is not so much the price itself, but I think the feeling that we are paying and not getting enough in return. What are the chances that we will see, in my view, more reasonable pricing level for Scale 500 models from Herpa again?
Well, prices going down is something. It doesn't go with just with airplane models. I mean, if you look around you, what prices will actually be going down? Maybe in 10 years, fuel will be going down, natural gas maybe, but everything else, even if inflation stops, we're not talking about lowering prices. Okay, that's something. Of course, if you ask me, or if you ask anybody would like to be able to offer their product at a lower price, just to produce more, except maybe Ferrari or whatever, those luxury things, But everybody else wants to sell as much as possible at reasonable prices. But there's so many pricing factors. It's not. I mean, it's all the different steps. You have production costs. You have personnel costs. You have logistics costs. You have always increasing licensing costs. I was talking about the entire day, basically. I don't know what time it is, afternoon, I guess, about how many airlines are now asking that were very, very easygoing in the past, are now starting to do licensing programs. I'm not going to say any names because some are very long-term partners of ours. But they're now saying, well, it's not just enough. We need a business plan from you. We want to do a licensing program, have royalty fees. So there's a lot of these things that are, not really only caused by production, but there are all these outside factors that join in, and just everything that brings up to the prices that we have just right now. And we have in between added, as you mentioned, we did add some printing details here and there, trying to do that on a little basis. We have to be careful about that, because if we add something like a maintenance marking on an engine on one side, just as an example, and you have maybe, in the worst case, I don't want, it's a cool aircraft, but you have something that has 4 engines on it, then you have that print at least 4 times, or if it's on the inside and outside,
but is that breaking the bank if you have to add like a little black dot? Let's take the front landing gear. Like a simple detail, most front landing gears have either some part of the registration code or a red or black line or something like that. It's a tiny little detail. Actually something Herpa has done in the past with certain models. Is that breaking the bank if you would add a little black line on the front landing gear?
Well, it's not just a little black line, because if you ask, or if a red line or something, and then you add the number to it, so you have 2 colors on that, do it on both sides. You also have to try to see if can you actually print it in a good quality on all the models in that size. Because on the bigger ones where you have bigger landing gear doors, that's not an issue. But you have smaller,
but you're not doing it on the bigger models currently.
Right, but because our feeling is we want to be consistent And we haven't been consistent because we've done club models. But if we do it, for example, on larger models, we do want to have it on the smaller ones as well. But if you look at the door of an A320, that is tiny.
But isn't that a question of communicating? I mean, if you, like now, say,
I mean, it's nice of you to ask me that question.
We can do it on the larger aircraft. It's easier for us to do, so it's more price, it's not as price sensitive, perhaps. It doesn't...
That's another point, sorry.
No, good.
Technical possible is one thing, costing. The thing is, it's not breaking the bank adding 2 dots or something. It's breaking the bank if you add 2 dots here, 5 things there, 7 there, and then it accumulates up. Because if you go way back, I mean, you can barely compare them anymore, but you see some of the very, very old models that we've done here back in the early 90s. If you go and look for like Iberia DC-10 or a Pan Am A300, I think it was, those kind of things. Back then we had, I know this because I looked it up last year again, but we had a maximum of that time, those first models from 1992 had a maximum of 15 imprints. We now have on don't want to say anything against Lufthansa, but even with a Lufthansa livery, you have on like an A380 or something, you have over 70 imprints. Just in comparison, so you in time, if you add more and more, it's like you continue adding drops, and all of a sudden it does spill over sooner or later.
I understand that.
So that's something we do have to be careful.
Yeah.
We can do it now, but how will costs? Because we have to look a little bit further in advance. How will costs develop maybe in 2 or 3 years? Nobody knows. I mean, there's so many factors going into it.
But then you could never do anything.
Right, but we have to, that's why we're doing it a little bit step by step, being cautious about what we do to see, because if we add something now, all of a sudden, I don't know, a price hike happens, hopefully never again, but it might be, a lot of political factors go into it as well, all the pricing.
But is it step by step if you say 2021 is the last time we had a really move forward, and now we're in 2025 and we haven't really seen any development since that? Is that step by step?
To be honest, I'd have to ask you a counter question. Is it the same? Is it since 2021 since we added the static port markings and maintenance markings? Or was that later? I think the maintenance markings were something that we added later on.
Static ports, no, you introduced static ports and markings on engines. That was in one at least announced in one go, okay. And that was in the beginning of 2021.
Change, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are doing. I mean, I would have to check each.
That's all right.
Right?
That's all right.
But if something will happen, it will be definitely maybe something like the landing gear doors. We just want to have it consistent over the 500 scale that we know that we can do it on all models. Because some people probably will not understand. Well, here you did it, and all of a sudden I don't know what to expect from Herpa anymore. Because all of a sudden you're not doing it on a 737 all of a sudden anymore.
I think that's a fair point, and consistency.
I'm
all
still
for.
Think about it, but
no. I mean, I think it's a fair point, and I think it's also important to have consistency. I would just, to end this topic, is just saying I think it's all a question of communication, because I think if you are forward with your communication, saying why you can do it on, for example, on an A380, but wouldn't necessarily do it on a CRJ 900. I think most reasonable collectors would understand. There will always be someone that doesn't, but right. That would be my point of view. But I appreciate also that again that you take these questions.
But a little thing about communication also. A date to remember. I'm a little bit in advance, but I hope it's a Tuesday, March 18. We'll have the next live chat.
I will look forward to it. I will be there and watch it.
Communication. Yeah.
I will also be there at the open day, so
okay, cool.
I will come there. Let's switch to some of these models that you have here. You have the sample model of the 757-300. It confuses me a little bit. Now, I think the sample model looks great. However, isn't it 5 to 10 years too late? Because, I mean, you just announced the Iceland Air in a brilliant livery. I mean, I would have loved to have that 5 years ago, to be honest, because I thought it was such a beautiful livery. It doesn't even fly around like that anymore. You will make the Condor models, you've talked about it many times, but when they will hit the shelves, they will most likely have almost, if not entirely, been retired by Condor. And of course, there will always be these classic collectors, and that's a whole range, and that's fine. But I think there's quite a lot of collectors that like to have the current stuff. And it feels like it's kind of coming too late. And I think it's a really shame, because again, it looks like a really good mold.
Thank you. I mean, the thing is, there's the reason, you just said the reason actually that we're doing it is Condor. Up to 2 years ago, nobody knew of the new livery, actually. And up to then, we said, well, just because of doing another United or Delta or a Condor aircraft in the old Thomas Cook mixed livery or whatever, the different things, that was something where we thought it would not be feasible anymore. And basically, knowing or learning of the new Condor livery said, okay, now is the time. Now we have to do it. Now we have to speed up a little bit, just to get everything out in time before Condor retires everything. But that is actually the reason, Condor is actually the reason why we're doing it. So we wouldn't, if they would have not come out with a new design on it, we would have probably said, well, we'll just keep it in the drawer, sell it.
Then I have to, I have to be so blunt. You are now making a new 757-300 mold, because Condor has given you the green light. But you have in the past said that you, for example, wouldn't make a new mold for a 737 Classic. Could be a 300, 500, most likely 300 because it's been produced way more, or 400, because there wouldn't be enough airlines to feature. That confuses me a little bit, because I would imagine, or I know, the 737 has been sold way more in real life than the 757, so wouldn't there be a much bigger range for you to actually get something out of that mold if you made it?
Yes and no, because the total quantities, we've seen it, we have a good comparison. When we do classic models, which I like personally a lot, of course we all grew up with them,
we grew up with them, we want to see them, yeah.
Right. But seeing in comparison, especially Condor, that's a completely different quantity range we're talking about. And even today, talking about a lot of, we had discussions, a little discussion group formed all of a sudden here this morning about doing all the classic items again that we did with the big rollable wheels, and just do all those old items, those old classics again. And they said, no, don't do those anymore, And then they were more discussing with each other, which was cool to see. It's just, that's what this is here also for collectors to discuss. And the overall quantities, especially for something small as the 737, and looking at the price level we're at, we talked about the price level, that is something where we can only really count on the core collectors group. That is not something that we can be able to sell outside, to a broader audience.
Just more reason to make a box that appeals to the core collector, not the grandfather or grandmother who buys one model a year for their grandson or grandchild.
No, we're not doing it for them. No. But still, the appeal in general of a 737, we've all flown with them, we've all seen them hundreds and thousands of times at airports. But still, the quantity, the possible sales quantity, is a completely different ballpark than it is for these new Condor. Definitely.
Okay.
And basically, we've been able, for the 757, we have been able to use, of course, parts of the existing -200 mold. So it's not that big of an investment compared to where for the 737s, those old molds are pretty unusable, anymore. So that would be definitely something that we need to do from scratch.
Yeah. And since we are looking at these sample models, I can't help but notice which looks very much like a 737 MAX 10, and with a Copper Airlines tail.
Yeah, we need to get it complete somehow.
But is that something that is possible, or is it just because you had this tail and then you put it on?
No, we just we broke the white tail, and we had to find something to fit onto it.
Okay.
No, but it's just to make it complete. But it is a MAX 10. I don't think Copa has ordered any. But that is something that's definitely will be coming out. We've held it back a little bit because we know that,
So you're teasing us with a fantasy model.
It's rare. It's a one-off.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Hand glued by yours truly.
Yeah. Very good, very good. Mr. Stephan Külgen, thank you very much for taking the time, taking the tough questions.
Of course.
And I look forward to the live stream, and I look forward to the Open Day event.
Well, great if you can join us.
I will be there.
July 5th, it was.
Exactly.
Saturday, July 5th.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.